you all get access to the Mentimeter?
We're trying.
Okay, just a few, just give 5 words on what you think teaching portfolio is all about. Okay, we got some input already here. Can you see my slide on Mentimeter?
Yes.
All right, great.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, this is a bit trial and error as well, because this is like my first time conducting online sessions for this kind of talk. But it's a good experience for all of us, I think. Okay, so we can see that the Mentimeters keep changing. Please provide me with more 5 words of what you think teaching portfolio is all about. So we have 6 participants joining in using Mentimeter currently. Okay, any more? Otherwise, maybe we can just talk a bit about this. Okay, so from the 5 participants that took part in this Mentimeter, we can see that most of you believe that teaching portfolio is about evidence. Yeah, that's what appear in this Mentimeter screen, the biggest one currently. Okay, and then it's followed by other things that almost similar, like learning quality, interesting evidence. Okay, and I think one of the important keywords that I can figure out from this Mentimeter is, all right, great. We have another words coming in, which is reflection. Okay, so we have evidence, reflections, and then teaching philosophy, innovations, learning quality, effectiveness, and so on. All right. Okay, so pedagogy, yeah, documentation, define yourself, psychology, moral. Wow, interesting. So that may be one of the key area that you want to talk in your teaching portfolio. Mm-hmm. Who are you? Yes. The CV, best practices, biography, experience, achievement, great, constructive alignment, technology, innovations. All right. I think that's a very good start for us today. Before we really go into what is the requirements for coming up with a teaching portfolio style. Okay, let me stop sharing this first and go back to my slide. Okay, if you want to interrupt me, just do at any time, yeah, because we are using Zoom. It's not a webinar like where you just listen to me. So try, if you have anything, just interrupt me at any time, yeah, Olin?
Okay, by the way, Dr. Nas, some participants also, they interact with you via the chat. Just now, Prof. Shukur said teachers believe about the, the Mentimeter. So that's where he responded. So yeah, just to pick your brain on that. So chat room is also a place for people to interact sometimes. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nas.
Yeah. So maybe from time to time you can also provide me with some important questions if if the participants put it in the chat, because I might not able to have control to everything at one time.
Okay, copy that.
So yes, please interrupt me. Yeah. Okay. So I think from the activities that we have done just now on the conceptions of teaching portfolio, I think everybody are clear on what teaching portfolio is all about. And what I have here is just a brief introductions on what teaching portfolio is. So yes, it should be a documentation of our teaching philosophy, okay, our responsibilities, teaching goals, and also accomplishments or the achievements in our teaching and learning practice. And it is also important that the document or the teaching portfolio document is a flexible document so that we can use it in a number of ways. Yeah, for example, perhaps we can talk about this later on what is our objective of coming up with the teaching portfolio. Is it for fulfilling the KPI of the schools, or is it for to be submitted for a DTA awards or for our professional development and so on? And importantly, teaching portfolio is a medium, okay, a platform or a medium for us to showcase our teaching and learning practices. And I think everybody has mentioned about this in the Mentimeter just now, about showcasing about best practices, platforms, documentations, accomplishments, achievements, teaching philosophy, and so on. Okay, so what it takes to produce a teaching portfolio. Okay, so when we want to come up with a teaching portfolio, we have to consider at least these three important elements. Yeah, first we have to select the purpose of coming with the teaching portfolio, as I mentioned just now. Is it for KI, for DTA, for professional developments, or for something else? Okay, and then we also need to know who is the audience of our teaching portfolio. Would it just the peers or the panels, or we want to share it with our students as well? So that will reflect on the contents that will be included in our teaching portfolio. All right, next is we have to reflect, because teaching portfolio is not just about collections of evidence, or it's not just about collections of documentations, okay? But in our teaching portfolio, we must be able to relate and connect the contents that we showcase in our teaching portfolio with our personal experience, with our own thought, and also we should be able to show in the teaching portfolio that we are doing continual assessment of our own teaching and learning practices. Yeah, and then finally, when we have done that, that is where we want to publish our teaching portfolio. So here is about we will be talking about the mediums or the platform that we want to share the teaching portfolio. All right, so basically, if you want to showcase our teaching and learning practices through teaching portfolio, it can be done either in a printed versions, which is the hard copy, the traditional way of doing portfolio, or we can have the electronic versions, or what we call as e-portfolio. So I think this is where most of us are interested in. So inshallah, in the next series that I have discussed with Dr. Olin, we will try to come up with workshops where we can come up with at least a simple or a starter of a e-portfolio, okay? And then we can also have the hybrid version, okay? This is what I did actually for my previous teaching portfolio submissions for the DTA, where I come up with interactive versions where I have hard copy of the teaching portfolio, but in the teaching portfolio, I have link connected to my e-portfolio, because at the same time, I also have e-portfolio, and then I also have some kind of immersive technology embed within my teaching portfolio. That's where I have a QR code, augmented reality thingy, something like that. Okay, so that's how we're gonna share our teaching portfolio. All right. Am I too fast?
For me, you're just
Okay.
this is good for me.
Okay. Okay, because I want to try to make these sessions like not too long, so perhaps just 1 hour we can finish. So I try to go as fast as possible, but I will try to cover what's important for today's session. Okay, so I think this is the most important parts of our workshops today, because we want to look at the requirements of a teaching portfolio, right, for the DTA submissions. And these are actually the outlines for the teaching portfolio for DTA submissions. First, we should have our autobiography. Yeah, I think some of you also mentioned about biography in the Mentimeter just now. Okay, and then we have teaching philosophy, our curriculum vitae, and then, okay, why I put this is red, because I think this is the most important part. Okay, the creativity and innovations, or the methodologies and strategies that we adopted in our teaching and learning that we want to highlight in our teaching portfolio. Okay, and then next we should have impact on teaching and supervisions, evaluation and testimonial, which is the assurance of learning, teaching and supervisions improvement, and finally the continuous quality improvement, how we take care of the quality of our teaching and learning practices. Okay, these components of teaching portfolio for DTA is a bit different from the basic requirement for teaching portfolio for the KPI, right?
Yes, Dr. Nazuar. It is.
All right. Because I'm waiting if someone wants to talk. Okay, fine. Okay, yeah, so it is a bit different, but actually, if we do the teaching portfolio DTA style, we can actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Yeah, we just do for the DTA, but at the same time, we can submit for the school KPI. And we can do the simple versions of the DTA portfolio if we want to submit for the school KPI. All right, so we can do both ways. But I think it should be good if we go for the DTA requirements, so that at the same time we can fulfill the schools or university KPI of teaching portfolio. And I think for your information, if you want to apply for a DTA, we should have at least 10 years of teaching experience, or we have been working with UUM for at least 10 years. But I would suggest for our new lecturers, like I think we have lots of potentials academics like Dr. Rahimi, Dr. Olin yourself, Dr. Farah, Dr. Faiz. You are not up to 10 years yet, but we can actually start preparing the teaching portfolio from now. Okay, so just submit that for the school KPI, but later when you are ready, you can improve it from time to time and just submit for the DTA. Okay. All right, so for today's questions, yeah, yes, Olin.
No, I'm sorry. Just saying that, yeah, we will prepare. I have to wait 8 more years. Just saying, to be eligible to apply.
Yeah. But you should start from now, okay? So that we can see that the teaching portfolio that we prepare, there is a progression in how we conduct our teaching and learning practices, and I think that's one of the things that the panels will look at.
Definitely. Inshallah. Thank you.
All right, so next, actually for today's session, I will just do some sharing, yeah, so that we can look at examples of what should be in the teaching portfolio, okay, so that perhaps it can provide us some guidelines or guidance on how we can start preparing the teaching portfolio for DTA. So I'm sorry that I can't show you my hard version, the printed one, but this is the copy, the cover of it. Yeah.
It's nice.
Okay. So in the teaching portfolio, like we saw at the outline just now, we will start with the autobiography. Okay, so autobiography is about introductions to ourselves. Okay, but we introduce ourselves in a professional way. Okay, not personal intro. What I mean is that we are not talking about our personal things like our birthdays, our families, our kids, and our hobbies and things like that. But it is more into our professional life. Okay, for example, what motivates us to become an educator, or what is our turning point that make us become who we are now, or in other words, what make you who you are now. Okay, so for example, in my autobiography, I just talk about how I started with my schooling careers, and then how I started jumped into the educational professions. Okay, starting from being a temporary teacher at schools, and then becoming contract lecturers at UITM, and then joining SEML as a tutor, going further up my study with the Master of Educations, and something like that. And I also have like personal experience that actually shaped my interest to become a teacher, like how I've been growing up in a family of teachers. So that's also have influence, okay, my becoming of an educator. All right, so that's just a very simple autobiography that I provide for my teaching portfolio last time. Okay, so I think everybody, like most of you, perhaps have more interesting story to tell about your professional introductions. Okay, so maybe if we can go back to the Mentimeter, perhaps in a sentence, can we share what makes you you?
Could you please elaborate a little bit more on this question, Dr. Nas? What makes you you? Means what do we think of ourselves?
Yeah, it's actually back to the point that I mentioned just now on what makes you who you are, or what other it can be anything. Perhaps you want to talk about the people who influence you. Maybe you want to talk about critical incidents that happens in your life that makes you an educator now. Because I know that some of us perhaps come from an industry, or perhaps previously a teacher at a school and then joining the university, or maybe you have other stories, other interesting points that you want to tell about what makes you who you are now as an educator. I mean, you get my point?
Yes, thank you.
All right. It can be anything. Okay, so please go to the Mentimeter with the code 1146 and 6.
Dr. Nas,
And
can you go back to the sharing screen? I think it's gone.
Okay, because I want to share the Mentimeter screen actually.
Okay, yes, please.
Okay, so
yeah, Dr. Naz, when I enter, why do I see this question? What is your conception of teaching? Or maybe do I need to I did not take this one because I was a
Have
bit
you done that
late.
before?
I think
Can you go
Yeah,
I think
right?
that the one that's shown is wrong, but maybe this is 11466. The one that was shown earlier was 11465, and it brought us to the first question on the Mentimeter.
yeah. I think we need another code.
Okay, so the current code is 11466.
Okay, 1 minute. We will go. 1146.
Okay, yeah, somebody already key in the response there. So I think it's work. Okay, so what makes you you? It can be anything. I don't know. It's very personal things or very maybe really depends on the experience that you have gone through. Okay, for example, we already have one response here. What makes you you? The cultural, social background, plus my gender and my experience. Oh, that's interesting. What is it? The gender plays an important role in becoming an educator. Okay, perhaps if we want to share, we can talk about this a bit later. Okay, sincerity, to give the best I can, passions and diligence. Wow. My experience, my friends, my students. Interesting.
Prof. Shukur just
Myself.
responded on chat, continuity, long life learning, and suddenly.
Myself, Olin, myself, because start a continuous study for long life learning, take a master, and then suddenly in UM, because after finish master study or full thesis, I'm in UM already. That's all.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Great. Thank you, Prof. Shukur, for sharing. Okay, the rest also, you if you want to talk about your what makes you you, you can also do that. Okay, this is just a platform for us to share using the one sentence. Yeah, but you can also just grab the mic, turn on your microphone, and talk to us. Nama saya Muhammad Zailani Muhammad Yusof. Okay, great. This is more than one sentence, Prof.
Awesome.
But that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you will elaborate that further in your autobiography. But that's good. It's a good start. Okay? All right. Life experience. Maybe anyone want to talk about what makes you you?
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah.
Dr. Nas, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Faizahani, welcome.
I think if anyone can guess, the moment I put gender, that will be me. So the answer came, the answer came from me. Because I think the way I look at education and the way I teach is also very much influenced and informed by my gender. For instance, not so much on UM, when I was teaching in schools especially, the way that we approach our students are obviously different from not only by experience but also by gender, because the way I see myself, for instance, because I am very sympathetic and empathic towards women's and girls' aspirations and their sufferings.
Yes.
Especially. So I felt that some parts of Malaysia, for instance, the girls can be in a very deprived, unprivileged situations in very remote and very poor places such as Baling and Sit. And when I approach my students who would come from this kind of background as well, I think the way that I approach my teaching learning in class will also be influenced by that as well.
All right. Okay, great. Great sharing, Dr. Faiza. Yeah, that's one of my examples of what makes you you. So that's other things that you should actually put in the autobiography. Okay, so maybe the rest, if anyone want to share, maybe another person, because before we proceed with the next slide. Okay, so we have more coming in. Passions of teaching portrayed by my primary school teacher. So your primary school teachers has influence on you, and that's what makes you you currently. So yeah, that's some kind of some examples of interesting story or interesting professionals background that you can put in your autobiography as the starting or as the introductions of your teaching portfolio. Okay, maybe we can just stop this first and proceed with our next slide, yeah? Okay. Okay, so we have done that on what makes you you. Now, next is the teaching philosophy. Okay, this is also important part in our teaching portfolio that we have to put in the documents, okay? Because we want to tell our own personal values and beliefs about teaching. So actually, starting from the autobiography, we can already have some introductions about our teaching philosophy. But here in the teaching philosophy sections, we will talk about it in further details. And the teaching philosophy sections is where we should actually started to highlight the innovations or the strategies, yeah, the methodologies, teaching and learnings that we want to showcase in our teaching portfolio. Okay, and teaching philosophy is also our own self-reflective statement. Okay, it describes what we believe, and in our teaching philosophy, we should also provide some examples of what we do in the classroom. Okay, so for example, if I said that my teaching philosophy is really based on the ideas of technology enhanced teaching and learning, so throughout my teaching philosophy, I should be able to provide some examples, and then throughout the teaching portfolio, I will align whatever I put in my teaching portfolio with my teaching philosophy. All right, so this is just an examples of my teaching philosophy page. I have like I think 6 pages of my teaching philosophy for the DTA teaching portfolio, but you can actually start with 1 paragraph or even just one page, yeah, for the teaching philosophy. And then later on, we can elaborate it further and put some evidence, put some examples, and make it longer. But it's not a requirement of the DTA to come up with the longer teaching portfolio. So it doesn't matter. There's no limits on the page numbers of the teaching portfolio, but I believe that don't make it too long. Okay, it's not a thesis like where it's but I know some people have like submit 200, 300 pages of teaching portfolio, but I think we should make it short but precise and concise, and it's really tell who we are. Yeah. Okay, so in my teaching philosophy, I talk about my passions in educational technology, okay, and then how I come up with my teaching and learning through blended and flipped learning. And here I started to have links to my e-portfolio, okay. If you can see in my teaching philosophy, I put a link. I screenshot my teaching portfolio, e-portfolio page, and then I put a QR code so that the panels or people can just scan and go to my teaching portfolio or e-portfolio. Okay, and then it is also important in the teaching philosophy that we talk about our role as an educator. Okay, so for example, in my teaching philosophy part, I talk about my role as a facilitator that facilitate learners to become explorer and creator. Okay, so you have to have some kind of beliefs or perhaps your philosophy of who you are as an educator. Okay. Okay, next is the curriculum vitae. Okay, in our teaching portfolio, we should also have a CV. Okay, but don't put the long CV that you submit to become a panel of examiners in the teaching portfolio. Yeah, okay, because teaching portfolio is a bit different, because we should at least have some kind of reflections, some kind of story to tell people about our academic achievements, and also the research and publications that we have come up with. But the focus should be on contributing to the improvement of teaching and learning. Okay, so I think we from SEML, we have the kind of like advantage in this sense, because I think our research, our publications, and whatever we do, it's all related to teaching and learning. Even other lecturers in UUM also, they conduct teaching and learning, but because we are from education's background, so it is much more, we can do it better, yeah? And it's really evidence in our research, in our publications, and in our professional developments. I believe that most of you have conducted like research that relate to teaching and learning. So as I said just now in a earlier slides, be selective. What it means by selective, this is where we start to select, not to put everything in the teaching portfolio, but just select those who have impact to teaching and learning. Yeah. Okay. So for example, okay, this is my first page. It's just talk about my academic achievement. That's nothing to do about it. Everybody have, I think, almost similar your academic background. And then I just share my PhD abstract, the summary of my PhD, so that people will get some ideas of what my PhD is all about. So it's not just about listing, yeah? It's not just about listing, but it's about sharing and showcasing our practice. Okay, so these are examples of how I put some of the research that I have conducted that contribute to the improvement in teaching and learning. Okay, so this is, I prepared this like in 2018. So perhaps I can start adding in now. But yeah, in 2018, these are some of the research that I have conducted that contribute to the improvement in teaching and learning. Okay, so I just put some of it, not all. Yeah, okay. And then what's important is we should be able to share the research outputs, okay? But again, be selective, not all, yeah? Okay, so for example, here I choose one of the research outputs from the SOTL grants that I did, okay, on developing student teachers critical thinking through collaborative online brainstorming. And this is where I come up with innovations project. Okay, I got IP for their strategies. Okay, and I also enter competitions for this so-called create, share, collaborate strategies. And this is kind of evidence that we can start sharing in our teaching portfolio. Okay. All right. And then in terms of the professional development, again, be selective, not all training that we have attended should be put or should be listed in the teaching portfolio. But we can be selective, just choose those who have impact towards developing ourselves to become a better educators. Okay, so I have few pages on this, but this is, I'm just showing one examples where I attend intensive training on redesigning education for Educator 4.0. And actually I have another page that talk about it, what I have learned from the training, and then what is my contributions in that training, and also how I leverage the knowledge that I get from the training to other academic staffs. Okay, so there should be an element of reflections. It's not just about putting pictures or showcasing things that we do, but we must have some kind of reflections on what we have done. Okay, and then next is the selected conferences and seminars presentations. So this is just a few examples. I have presented in many seminars with many papers, but I just chose a few that relate to teaching and learning. Okay. Next is the methodologies and strategies. Okay, so I think this is the most important part in our teaching portfolio, where we should highlight our creativity and innovation in the teaching and learning. Innovation doesn't mean technology, yeah? Tak semestinya technology. But in my case, because I'm an educational technologist, that's my expertise area, so I think I should go around that. And that is where I introduce, or I believe on the idea or the philosophy of technology enhanced teaching and learning, which I have already talked about it earlier on in my teaching philosophy. Okay, so this is just an introduction of what in my teaching portfolio when I talk about technology enhanced teaching and learning. So in my teaching portfolio, I put some examples of or evidence of how I come up with the technology enhanced teaching and learning. So I have project-based learning, for example, and then I conducted interactive lessons and also flipped learning. Okay, so this is another example, just to make it in an outline so that people understand what is my innovations all about. So it's about integrating online technologies for supporting project-based learning, interactive lessons, and also flipped learning. So in my teaching portfolio, I talk or I touch about this, yeah. So I talk about how I use learning management system, UUM online learning, as a main platform, and then within the teaching and learning activities, I conducted flipped learning. So when we're doing flipped learning, we have pre-lesson, in-class learning activities, and also post-lessons activities. And those are the examples of technology tools that I use to support their activities. For example, during pre-lessons, I use YouTube videos, digital resources, and then during in-class activities, I use interactive lecture like Nearpod, Poplet, Padlet, and so on. And I also integrate digital assessments such as Quizlet, Kahoot, quizzes, yeah. And then post-reflections, okay, I also encourage students to do reflective writing, and they can post the reflective writing either into my blog, my own blog, or in a Padlet that I prepared for them. And another example is using video-based reflections, which is okay. So this is the examples of the creativity and innovations page of my teaching portfolio. So I started with talking about 21st century learning design, on how I developed my stance, yeah, on constructivist theory of learning, where I talk about student-centered and active learning principles, which is these are the theories that actually underpin or that I base or ground my teaching and learning practice on. Okay, and then after that, I start to talk about the projects, just give some examples of the project-based learning that I conducted. Okay, so I share how I go through about conducting the project-based learning, the instructional design in doing that. Okay, so I have the phases which I based on AD model, like during week 1, they do the analysis, week 2 until 4, they do the design, week 5 to 10, they come up with the development, implementation, and so on. Okay, finally, they did the evaluations in week 14. So these are the kind of showcase, because if you remember in our Mentimeter just now, when we talked about what is our conceptions about teaching portfolio, is about showcasing and also about sharing the best practices. So this is the platform, okay, to actually start sharing our practices, okay, so that other people can actually have a look at it, and they can try to replicate or use it as a model, so that they can also implement it in their teaching and learning practice. So I think that's another goal of me developing teaching portfolio, is for the sharings for the educators, communities of practice, and also for educators' professional development. Okay, so I think okay, actually this one is like I was not able to put it in my teaching portfolio because this paper was published like at the end of the year 2018. Okay, but I submitted the teaching portfolio earlier on. Okay, so I was not able to put this into my teaching portfolio. But if we have publications that really related to the innovations that we implement in the teaching and learning, then it will add more values to our teaching portfolio. Okay, so this is the examples of publications that I managed to come up with from the project-based learning that I implement in my teaching practice. I did this with, it's actually for my own teaching, my own class, but when conducting the analysis and doing the publications, I collaborate with Puan Nur Aida, okay, and she's a good co-author. Okay, thank you very much, Vaida. I'm not sure whether she's here or not. Okay, so next is this is still within the methodologies and strategies. So perhaps we can put some evidence, okay, on students' reflections about the PBL just now. Okay, so I have some examples here, like the experience, gaining, developing, website, blah, blah, blah. This is what the students talk about their activities or students' reflection, and we share it in our teaching portfolio. Okay, and then I continue my methodologies sections with what I did to support interactive lessons, such as I did gamifications and also using digital tools for formative assessment. Okay, so this is another examples on how I conduct interactive learning strategies using Poplet, Padlet, and Nearpod. Okay, and it is also good to have evidence of students' learning outcome. What I mean by students' learning outcome is that is the product that students come up with, because like my course is a technology-based courses, so most of the students, they will come up with their own product, teaching and learning materials. Okay, so I put the link to their product in my e-portfolio. Okay, so it's actually from my e-portfolio, but then because this is a hard copy or printed versions of teaching portfolio, so I put in QR code in my teaching portfolio. But if you can scan this QR code now, you can go actually to the video or to the product that students develop. And I believe that examples that we put in our teaching portfolio is a reflection of how we conduct the teaching and learning. Okay, because I think the way we design the teaching and learning, it will be reflected in the students' work. Okay, any feedback on this? Any response? Maybe you want to disagree with me? Hello.
Dr. Nazuar.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm afraid that I'm just talking alone. Okay, great. Yes, Prof.
Dr. Nazuar, saya nak tanya, kedua-dua kod ni apa peranan dia untuk kita tentukan? Yang Dr. Nazuar buat dua-dua QR code ni. Adakah
Peranan,
untuk
ini sebagai evidence of students learning outcome.
okay.
Ya, bukti hasil pembelajaran lah. So because normally in our teaching portfolio, okay, because I'm just giving like few examples, few pages of my teaching portfolio. It's not in a full form, but we will start talking about what we do in the class, what is the course learning outcome that we want to achieve, okay, and then towards the end we will show the evidence of how the students actually have achieved the course learning outcome. So these are examples of the students' work. So from the examples, we can see whether the course learning outcome has been achieved or not.
Okay, sebagai contoh, kalau dalam shooting rules ni kita masukkan apa?
Dekat sini, bila kita scan this QR code, it will go to a YouTube video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the YouTube video was actually the product of the students learning.
Okay.
Because this is
Dia
for
merujuk pada produk lah, maksudnya.
Ya, ini hasil pelajar because evidence of students learning outcome. Hasil kerja pelajar.
Okay, terima kasih.
Yeah. Yes. So for example, if you are teaching research methodology or you are teaching perhaps more on, or you want to talk more about your supervisions, you can actually share papers that have been published by your students. Because the quality of your students' work is actually a reflection of your teaching and learning practice. That's my belief, but I'm not sure. We can have other evidence as well for other project. Maybe if you want to share what else, yeah. Okay, this is for audio and video. So I have video as a proof. But for example, in my other course, I teach website development. So I can have students' website as an examples of their students' learning outcome. Okay, is that clear?
Hello.
Yes, Shah.
Dr. Naz, what app can we use to scan the code?
Just use QR code reader, any QR code reader.
Any QR code. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I'm so glad that I listened. I can hear your voices. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just talking to myself. Okay, so please interrupt me from time to time, yeah? Okay, next, again, this is another examples of students' work and also an examples of how we empower students' learning, where they go for innovations competitions, for example, and they receive awards and certifications for the work that they did under our supervisions. So that's another examples that we can put in our teaching portfolio. All right. Again, I like to have a bit of interactivity in my talk. So perhaps this would be the last Mentimeter activity. Can we go back to our Mentimeter and then maybe we can share what would be the innovations of teaching and learning that you want to highlight in your teaching portfolio? Again, it doesn't necessarily be technology-based innovations. It can be anything. Okay, let me share the Mentimeter screen. Okay, can you see it? Okay, so we have done with what makes you you. Now we go to the next Mentimeter activity. What would be the innovations in your teaching and learning that you want to highlight in your teaching portfolio? Wow, great, Shah. Kaji software, I know it's from you. Okay, anybody else? Perhaps, for example, like Dr. Mazila, she's also the winner of DTA. Maybe like she want to highlight on service learning or sulam. That can be one of the things that you want to highlight in your teaching portfolio. Smart curriculum studies, case-based learning, interesting. Innovative testing, yes. Student learning outcome. Okay, so your teaching portfolio will talk about how the students have achieved the course learning outcome, things like that, perhaps. I don't know, maybe we can talk about this later. Okay. Innovative way to encourage accountability in learning. Interesting. But perhaps you can start thinking of what is that innovative way. Yeah. Perhaps you will have like inquiry-based learning or scenario-based learning or something like that. I don't know. Okay, my assessment method as a part of teaching and not separate from teaching. This is based upon my philosophy that assessment is learning. Ah, interesting. Who's this? Maybe you want to share about this? Is it from you, Nikki?
No.
No. I
know.
Guessing.
Noman, it's Noman, I think.
Oh, Noman. Yeah, Noman. Perhaps you want to share about this, Noman.
Okay, but he's in another room. His microphone doesn't work very well.
Okay. All right. Never mind. Okay, maybe somebody else. Anyone who talk about the thing that you have shared here a bit further. Would you like to talk about the Kaji software, Shah?
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Yes. Okay. What's the question?
Maybe you want to talk about the innovations that you want to highlight in your teaching portfolio. And here you mentioned about Kaji software. So how do you plan about highlighting Kaji software in your teaching portfolio?
I have no idea yet. But that's why I'm in this workshop. But actually, I'm going to try for this semester asking students to use the Kaji software. And then create their quiz items. They have to come up with their own questions and then find their answers. And then at the end of their work, they will come up with a report which is can be auto generated by the software, and then we can look at the report, and then we can see how much is the command of the students' knowledge about the course from the questions and answers. And then we can also check their work, and then their overall score, the actual score for the course. So we know it's like a kind of triangulation kind of thing.
All right.
And we can determine if the student really worked for it, or something like that.
All right, great. I think it's a very good idea. So at least now you have start thinking about the innovations that you want to introduce in your teaching and learning practice, and you can start collecting evidence, or perhaps you can start documenting the process of how you conduct that innovations in your teaching and learning, and then can be included in the teaching portfolio. Okay, so later on when you have done conducting or using the Kaji software, you will have feedbacks, evaluations, data, okay, from the project, and you can also share that in the teaching portfolio, like the one that I did just now on the project-based learning. Yeah, so I first documented the process of how I conducted the project-based learning, on what course that I conduct that innovation with, and then what the outcome of the projects. And towards the end, I managed to come up with the publications, for example. All right, great, Shah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else that want to share? Tiada sebarang inovasi macam mana? I think this is the time to start thinking about the innovations. Don't limit the innovation with, like I said, with technology or with tools or something like that. But the innovations can be just on their strategies. Okay, for example, we have here like innovative testing. So if perhaps before you are doing very traditional way of testing, now you want to introduce an innovative way of testing, but please define what you mean by the innovative testing. Have some elaboration on that, document the process on how you conduct the innovative testing, and then have some data on how the innovative testing has give impact to the teaching and learning activities, and also on their students' learning development. Okay, all right. So maybe we can stop this one here so that we can proceed with our next slide, because it's 11 o'clock already, and we want to make it not more than 2 hours. Actually, I plan to have just like 1 hour, but perhaps it can be last in 1.5 hours only. Okay. Okay, let me stop sharing this one and go back to my slide. Okay, it's a bit challenging actually to come up with online training like this, but I think it's a very good experience, and I'm learning out of this process as well. Okay.
Dr. Nas?
Yes.
Okay, saya nak share.
Yes.
Nak share. Ya, macam tadi ada yang kata tak ada inovatif kan? Inovatif. So, macam dengan pengalaman saya sendiri, sebenarnya semua orang dah ada innovation, especially yang hasil produk daripada PhD. Contoh kan macam dengan Dr. Zaini sendiri, kalau kita tengok tesis PhD Dr. Zaini tentang skema penakkulan kan, skema penakkulan moral tu, yang tu boleh diinovasikan sebab semestinya dari sudut, macam Dr. Nas kata tadi lah, tak semestinya inovasi itu dari aspek teknologi.
Yes.
Tapi dia boleh juga dari sudut penghasilan seperti rubrik, kemudian dari sudut instrumen, yang tu kita develop daripada situlah asas kepada inovasi kita dalam PDP lah. Jadi antara ideanya tu start from our PhD result kita, cuba develop daripada situ, yang ni saya bercakap ni untuk yang bagi yang sains sains sosial, yang mana yang kurang mahir dalam teknologi, sebenarnya kita boleh menghasilkan inovasi dari aspek itulah. Maksudnya kalau kita boleh develop daripada contohnya saya sendiri pun hisbah tu asalnya daripada instrumen kajian tentang hisbah akhlak, yang mana kita boleh kembangkannya untuk dari bagaimana kita nak mengukur aspek-aspek yang dalam Imam Ghazali itu sendiri kepada yang lebih kita nampak macam mana kita nak implementkan dalam PDP itu sendiri. Maksudnya daripada inspirasi daripada tu situ yang kita createkan, kita saya nak cerita, kita cuba jadikan itu sebagai cetusan idea kita yang seterusnya kita buat dalam proses macam yang Dr. Nas buatlah, teruskan dalam research kita. Maksudnya bila kita sentiasa cuba mencari idea, hasil daripada research kita itulah akan membentuk satu inovasi kajian kita tu sendiri. Terima kasih Dr. Nas.
Yes. Terima kasih Dr. Mazilah for the sharing. Yes, that's another way on how we can actually start looking for the innovations that we want to highlight in our teaching portfolio. We can look at our previous projects, perhaps from our PhD works or perhaps from our research work as well. Okay, and then we test it in our teaching and learning, and we see how it give impacts to our students' learning. Okay, thank you again, Dr. Mazilah. Okay, next, just a very quick. Next is on the continuous, on the teaching and supervision's improvement. Okay, this is on CQI. Okay, on how we come up with planning on how to ensure that our teaching and learning practice is improving from time to time. Okay, so for example here, what I did is I will start with collecting preliminary informations at the beginning of the semester. I will ask students about their expectations of the course, okay, and then their missions toward the course, what their goals toward the course, and what do they expect to get out of the course. And this can be done in like, because I have e-portfolio with blog, so I can ask my student to just put their thinking in the blog. Okay. Otherwise, you can use UUM online learning platform, okay, to collect students' feedback at the beginning of the semester. So at least you have one activity already done early in the semester to fulfill the blended learning activity. Okay, and then throughout the semester, what I did, okay, or what we did to ensure that what our plan, the designs of the instructional design, the course that we design, give impacts on students' learning and supervisions. Okay, so you can talk about one specific course, or for the DTA, you can talk in a general way, yeah, just by giving examples that you conducted in your teaching and supervision. Okay, so another important part in these sections is on how the CQI that we conducted give impact on our students' learning and also supervisions. So for example, here I talk about how I come up with the supervisions with my teacher trainee. Okay, they are not from IT background, they never attend my class or IT classes. Okay, but through the supervisions, after several times of discussions, we can see that students are improving and they are applying the innovations or technology in their practical training, okay, during their practical training. So that can be one of the examples of how our supervisions has actually give impact to our students. And also, like I said just now, like I have not many PhD students, so I don't have I can't put. In fact, during the time I prepared this, I have no PhD students, so I have no evidence on impact on supervisions for research project. But perhaps if you have lots of PhD students, masters by research students, you can have evidence of their publications, of their works, of how they develop themselves, okay, as a researcher under your supervisions. And another examples that I put in my teaching portfolio was how I supervise my students in a projects up to until they can manage to enter for innovation competitions, come up with marketing materials. So there are so many things that happening actually in one particular course, where we're not only trying to achieve our course learning outcome, but also to achieve the program learning outcome, the PLO. So for example, this is for technology and innovations in education. So the course learning outcome is not just that the student should be able to come up with an innovations product, but one of the program learning outcome, PLO, that is scattered by this course is on the entrepreneur mind. So I have to kind of like think of how we can actually nurture the entrepreneurship's mind, the entrepreneurship thinking in their students' development. So this one of examples of how our supervisions has actually give impact on students' learning and on their soft skill development. Okay. All right. So I think this is the last part. Sorry, the second last part in our teaching portfolio. Is about evaluations and testimonial or assurance of learning. So normally in this part, we will put in some examples of the students' results. And it's good if you can provide with some kind of analysis of how your students have developed from time to time. Yeah, perhaps you have charts or data to show how they progress from in the earlier semester up to the end of the semester, or perhaps on the data of how your students overall for perhaps specific course. For example, if you are teaching the same course for a few semesters, then perhaps you can do some kind of evaluations of how the students in the current semester, for example, where you have some interventions with them, you conduct an innovations practice with them, how they develop or how they become more outstanding compared to the one who didn't involve in any interventions, something like that. That can be one examples of how we conduct the evaluations and testimonial in our teaching portfolio.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes. Evaluation we can share too, right? In there, it's all or so everything, or based on this you are sharing.
Yeah, just choose, just pick one or two.
Okay.
Okay. So this is like for this part it's not for wide sharing. So normally like this part I won't share in my e-portfolio.
Okay.
So not all that I have in my teaching portfolio that I submitted for DTA, not everything are available in the e-portfolio.
Okay. Copy that.
Okay, so that's the concern when we want to go into e-portfolio where everybody can have access to our e-portfolio. There are some concerns that we have to consider. Yeah. Okay, so for example, like this kind of data is simply that we can share in the e-portfolio.
Okay, this data is, but you did share this with in the hard copy for DTA.
Yeah. It's in the hard copy for the assessment, for the evaluations, but it's not in my e-portfolio.
Okay.
So currently what I have in my e-portfolio is just the evidence of, like, for example, evidence of the students' learning outcome, the projects that students have come up with, examples of reflections that students have involved in, and things like that, but not really the replications or the copy of my teaching portfolio into my e-portfolio.
Dr. Nas,
Thank you.
Yes.
I've got a question, okay,
yes.
which is, okay, when we talk about evidence of testimonials from students, I believe that sometimes that the ones that we've got is the ISIVAS evaluation,
Yeah.
right? The one that we have in our portal. Okay, what happens there is, I think after a while, the kinds of comments that students do put in our for our courses tend to be a bit standardized. Perhaps they simply, for the sake of putting in comments, they would just copy from their friends' responses. Okay, what about those other evidence of testimonials that come for instance, I've got some students who do not, who tend to be a bit introvert in class. Therefore, they will personally WhatsApp you with messages of thanking us. I think that's a bit personal, but at the same time it's very how do I say that, because I do get this from time to time, and I feel that this is much more helpful for me to move forward with my teaching. So can we put that as well in our teaching portfolio? Is that counted as well?
Yes, yes, actually you can do that. I have example of that as well. I'll show you in a while. Okay, so that's an example of evaluation that's come from ISIVAS. And then when we talk about testimonial, we also have testimonials from students, testimonial from peers, and also testimonial from societies. Okay, so yeah, I agree that in ISIVAS, the testimonial or the feedback that we get sometimes is kind of like standardized for everybody, and they talk about the same thing. Okay, but perhaps it's good if we can have more evidence that come naturally to us without we ask them to do that. Okay, for example, like I never ask my students to give me any testimonial, okay, personally on me, but what I did is normally based on reflections. Okay, after teaching or learning activities, we ask them to reflect. Okay, from the reflection, we can actually get some extract where they talk about the way we conduct the teaching and learning, where they talk about the way we develop a relationship with the students and things like that. So it comes very naturally without you ask them to provide a very specific testimony about you. And it happened to me. I never asked my students to give any testimonial about me personally, but yeah, I also receive message on WhatsApp group, or sometimes they send me a very personal message saying thank you after they receive their final marks, or even after they are graduating, or even after like 5-10 years they leave the university. So we still have that kind of testimonials or feedbacks from students, and that can be put in our teaching portfolio, but with some kind of reflections, I think. Okay, so this I just give examples, like I never expect to receive this kind of thank you notes, handwritten, but it happens to me in 2018 and in 2017. Okay, and yeah, I think it's something nice to put in the teaching portfolio, so I just share it. Why not? Okay, and I also have examples here, feedback from peers, okay, from SEML. If you can see the the WhatsApp group is a SEML WhatsApp group. Okay, actually I can, like, we can like, perhaps it's good if we can hide the numbers or the names of the people who provide the feedback. Okay, so I will consider that in the next teaching portfolio preparation. But this is just to give examples of how you can actually gather or put some testimonial from peers. And again, I didn't ask for any testimonial, but it happens after you do something. For example, you conduct a training or you do some sharings. It happens that people send message in the WhatsApp group or perhaps to you personally talking about what they have done or what the impact of our contributions towards them. Okay, so that's an examples of testimonial as well.
Great,
Okay,
great.
and also yes.
Dr. Nas, this is super sweet and yeah,
Yes,
it's really pretty and inspiring. Yeah, you deserve it. And by the way, we have another question. Dr. Faizani, are you? Do you have another question? But I'm trying to.
It's not actually a question. Sorry, it's just something that I suddenly think of. Quite often, I remember it's always us assessing our PhD students. Every time we meet, or each semester we will come up with the input progress. But I just remember that they don't evaluate us. Our supervisors, they don't evaluate us, and it's just talking to Dr. Nas just now just reminds me of. Okay, if only, because we do get frustrated with our PhD students. Sometimes I wonder what is it that's holding them back from their progress. So perhaps we can do we can get some sort of like a form. Dr. Khaliza perhaps could help us later on for them to just assess our we as supervisors as well. Like how have we supervised them in terms of guidance and so forth. Perhaps that is also something that we can put in our testimonials later on. I don't know, yeah, perhaps something to think of.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, perhaps I can also highlight this issue. Maybe if we can have some kind of evaluation feedback that come directly into our portal, like when we have students enroll in our course, they will have ECVAS for them to evaluate us. But perhaps for PhD students, we can have that kind of system that would be very good as well, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a great suggestion, Dr. Faizahani. We have a question by Dr. Hamid on chat. He's asking, he's asking a suggestion, Dr. Nas, if you could suggest a user-friendly tool for both students and teachers to do reflection. Okay, so yeah, if you can read, he has on chat here. And but yeah, briefly, that's what I think. What is application that we can give to our students to write their reflection throughout semester? That the tool that is user friendly for both students and teachers. Yeah.
Well, I think most of us are familiar with Padlet, and I think Padlet is one of the tools that is easy for us, both of us, like the lecturers and the students, to get access with. And it's also easy for them to have their reflections on the Padlet wall, and we can also have our reflections on the same wall. Okay, that's one example using Padlet. And if you want to have like video-based reflections, you can start trying Flipgrid. Okay, where you can have you can post a reflections topic and ask your students to reflect on it, and you can also give feedback or reflect upon their reflections.
Dr. Hamid is asking, can we install Flipgrid in our phone?
Yes. It can be easily accessed using mobile phone.
Okay, he said no need to open computer or whatsoever he asked again. And Dr. Hamid, if your mic is functioning, feel free to jump in and ask.
Yes, to interrupt me at any time. I like to hear some voices. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just talking to myself, the computer, you know. Okay. I think once again, I like to highlight, just be selective. Okay, I believe that we all have so many evidence, we all have so many testimonials, we all have so many screenshots of things, pictures and everything. But be selective and reflective on what we want to put in our teaching portfolio. Okay, so for example, here I have just one testimonial from the societies, but it's really based on what I did after conducting one interactive workshop with, I think I remember this one I conduct with Dr. Aziza on counseling seminar. So most basically my role on that in that seminar was just as a digital facilitator. I'm not giving any talk about counseling, but I facilitate the speaker on that seminar so that they can have interactive sessions using Padlet at that time, and then Quizlet and things like that. And those are the feedback that I get from the seminar, which I think can be put and can provide some examples of testimonials from the societies, meaning that it's outside it's not our students, somebody else, yeah. Okay, and then perhaps if you want, you can also highlight about how you develop a social relationship with your students, okay? Because teaching and learning practices is not just about us teaching in front of the class or giving students with lots of educational materials and things, but it's also about how we develop a relationship with our students so that they feel more comfortable to seek knowledge and also to discuss with us. And I think it's really important in today's culture, and because of we are dealing with the Gen Z generation, so we have to be a bit careful on how we want to develop a relationship with them, yeah, for social relationship. I mean, for example, here I just give, I have a few, but just giving an example. And yeah, again, this one, I don't know where I put all the evidence, but luckily I put this in on my Facebook post. So when I prepared this teaching portfolio, I just go to my Facebook and do screenshot and just put it here. So I think sometimes it's good as well to share what we did in our Facebook, so that later on, if you are kind of like have no idea where to get the evidence, you can just search from your Facebook, just in case you have shared it there. Okay, so this is just example that for my practical training students, because normally practical training students, they didn't come to campus anymore during their teaching practice, but perhaps when they want to do the submissions, they want to do some kind of discussions, okay, we allow them to come to our house, or perhaps we can meet outside the office, at the cafe, or wherever place that convenient to both parties. So that's examples of how we actually take care of our students, yeah, outside the classroom. Okay, I don't want to talk about that a bit longer. Okay, next, I think this is the last sections in our teaching portfolio on how we come up with continuous quality improvement, or the CQI. So I think I have few pages on this, but this is just to give examples on how actually because like when I prepared the teaching portfolio, it was like for the semester, the previous semesters. And then currently, this is the most current one. So I have no time to talk about it very detailed in the teaching portfolio, to talk about the process and so on. But in the continuous quality improvement, I highlight about how I, as an educational technology that believe on the use of technology to enhance teaching and learning. So I align it back with my teaching philosophy, and I talk about how I keeping up, yeah, with the emerging technologies. So I have kind of like a story to tell people, okay, how I progress from using the digital technologies starting from 2006, I think, up to 2018. Okay, so previously I just used like a very simple technology tools. Now I'm moving up, or I'm keeping up with the emerging technologies, such as the gamifications, the immersive learning, augmented reality, things like that. And that's examples of how you can actually talk about it in your teaching portfolio. Okay, so this is the latest one that I think I didn't manage to put in my teaching portfolio. Yeah, no, this is like 2018, end of 2018. So I didn't manage to put it in the teaching portfolio. But these are the things that we can start collecting again. So like for me, I am now responsible to start preparing teaching portfolio for the AAN, because I can't go for the DTA anymore. DTA is just once for UM. Okay,
Wow.
and then next will be the AAN.
In advance.
Yeah, sorry.
Congratulations in advance.
No. I thank you. I'm not ready for it yet. Okay, so it's like 2018, 2019. I got the DTA, and we have left 2019 already. 1 year we have passed 2019, and this year is 2020, and I still couldn't prepare my teaching portfolio yet for the AAN. Perhaps Dr. Mazila has done that. Okay, so perhaps in like 1 or 2 years. But now I've started collecting the evidence and start to recraft my teaching portfolio so that it will show how I progress from previous years up to now. Okay, so this is just an example. I'm not sure if I can show this
Assalamualaikum
video.
and good afternoon. I'm Sufi. So this is my first infographic poster for IT in education. My topic is about verb to be. It is one of the important grammar rules in English that students need to learn before they know how to write or speak in English. So, as you can see here, this is the rules. I am, he is, she is, it is, you are, we are, they are. So, this is the examples given for the students so that they will understand better. And this QR code here links the poster to the YouTube video where the students can sing a song about verb to be. And this is my trigger image here. This is my own video. This link the poster to my own video. Okay, as you can see, we can scan my trigger image and hopefully there will be a video of my daughter. Okay, is it? Okay, this is the song. The verb to be song. He, she, it is, I am, you are, he, she, it is, I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are, you are, they. Okay, so basically I choose the song because students will remember it better than just the normal teaching where I just say I am, he is. So if they can sing the song, they will remember the rules. Thank you.
That is super great. I have a question actually.
All right, yes, please.
This is actually an English teacher in your SJDT 5013. They can always, because this your course is technology, something to do with technology, and it's in your CLO. Yesterday we had the peperiksaan vetting, something like that, with the JK pentaksiran, and then some people trying to change the 40% coursework, final exam into coursework, and then this is one English course, and she's trying to do something like innovation. I know the idea is actually merging English and technology, asking to do grammar and in Kahoot, a quiz or something, and she's also trying to ask students to write something on Weebly, and the panels there were saying that, okay, well, this is good, but the CLO is not asking, so she's asking too much. So basically, what I'm seeing that those who are not teaching technology, if they are trying to ask students to do something, integrated with technology, is going to be more burden, way beyond the SLT, and in a way like being kind of like, okay, you cannot do that because that's not actually what the SLO is. It's not like English and technology. It's just like, okay, grammar, do the content, anything about grammar. If you want to add something technology, and yeah, some part of technology is too much, I think, that I know that instructor is asking, but some I think is doable because that's how we are progressing. So the idea is like, then we're gonna get comment by the auditor, okay, this is not matching the CLO. We just want the content, So you are teaching IT, you are really blessed with all these fun students who work with technology. So that's my question, like how to actually, my question is actually how to actually balance with this. And then we want to put our innovation with technology, of course. When we talk about innovation now, although we said no need technology, but we always people think about technology first. So how to balance with the SLT and the CLO, especially when we want to include technology.
Yes. I agree with you on that, because sometimes we are tend to be a bit ambitious in our even me myself. Sometimes I just want to do like, oh, I want to do this and this, but we actually have to go back to our CLO and to make sure that it's not burdening our students. And I think for courses that are not technology in nature, we can still do some kind of technology integrations into the curriculum or into the syllabus, but we have to make sure we know first our students' existing knowledge of technology. Okay, otherwise we have to at least guide them, okay, or introduce them with the technology that we want them to use. And if they are okay with it, then we can actually integrate it in our course content. Okay, so for example, for an English course, I think it should be no problem to integrate a bit of technology in the English course, especially when preparing the assignments or the materials, because most of our students, they must have at least the basic knowledge of technology. So we have to put that into considerations if we want to ask them to come up with a technology-based product. Okay, but the focus of our assessment is on the content of that particular course. For example, if you are measuring on English skills, then the focus should be on that, not on the technology per se. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. Understanding learners first, and then of course,
yes,
prioritize what's the most important thing, what's intended. Thank you.
Yeah. So for example, for this course, it's IT in education. So my students come from various backgrounds. Some of them are English teachers. Some of them are Islamic education teachers. So when it comes to the content, I ask them to, okay, use your own content. So for example, if you are English teachers, you should come up with something in English related to your teaching. But then I facilitate them on how the technology can supplement the English teaching, So that's where they come up with the posters, they come up with the QR code, and also they come up with the augmented reality thing to be put in the poster.
Awesome.
So I'm not teaching them the content. I'm not teaching them the English thingy. Yeah. Right. So just the technology.
And the case of that lecture was the other way around. So yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Thank you. It's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's just an examples of evidence that we can start collecting. If you have this kind of evidence, put aside in one folder in your computer, so that later if you want to come up with the teaching portfolio, you can or perhaps you can start have your e-portfolio or YouTube channels, or even link to your students' own channels, have the link, and then we can create the QR code in our teaching portfolio, so that when people scan the teaching portfolio, it will go to that video or to the YouTube channels or the e-portfolio links.
Great suggestions. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay, so this is just I'm just giving perhaps after this, if any one of you want to give a try, you can go to the qrcodegenerator.com to generate QR code for interactive teaching portfolio like the one that I did. Okay, but I'm not going to show the how to do this during these sessions. Okay, but this is just for takeaways. Maybe some of you are a bit explorative, you want to have a try. It's very easy, it's very simple and easy. You can just do it on your own. Okay. All right, so I think we are almost at the end of the slide. So I end my teaching portfolio with one page of concluding statement. So in that page, I don't have that page shared here. Okay, in that page, I reflect on how I have developed myself to be me. Okay, based on where I come from with. I mean, from where I learn. Okay, for example, here I give I've been like graduating from UUM for my first degree and for my first master degree, and then I also graduated from Monash for my MEd in education master's degree and also for my PhD. So I think it's really blend me to become who I am now. So even though I am a lecturer, I am an educator currently, but I'm still learning, and this has been highlighted in my teaching philosophy, where I talk about to teach is to learn twice and over. Okay, so in my concluding statement, I align it back on how I actually develop myself, and I also base my philosophy based on what I learned from, and it's really reflected from Monash University, like what we call this the like we in UUM we have this ilmu budi bakti, but Monash is Ancora Imparo, which means still I learn. So that's the belief that I put from the beginning of my teaching portfolio until to the conclusions of my teaching portfolio. So throughout the teaching portfolio, I also talk about how I learn from my students. Okay, when I conducted teaching, it's not just me teaching, but most of the time I also learn from my students. Okay, so that's are the things that we can highlight in our teaching portfolio.
Yeah, I love this quote. Ancora Imparo. I don't know what language is that. By the way, we have a question by Dr. Yusuf, Dr. Biabar.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Dr. Nas, is it advisable to have a section on future plans or strategies anywhere in the e-portfolio, or is CQI part of this? That's the question.
Yeah. You can have that in the CQI part. What you plan to do next, what you plan to do to improve the teaching and learning practice, that can be put in the CQI part. The final sections of the teaching portfolio.
Copy that. Okay. Yeah. Any more question, Dr. I think that's it from Dr. Biabar. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we are almost comes to the end of the workshops. So this is just examples of my teaching e-portfolio. Perhaps after these sessions, you can go to my teaching portfolio and have a look and get some ideas on what e-portfolio is all about. And perhaps, inshallah, in the next session, then we can start coming up with our teaching portfolio. And also, if we want to convert it into e-portfolio, we can do that. So I think after these sessions, it's good if we can come up with the simple teaching portfolio first, so that we can submit that for the school's KPI first.
Awesome. Okay, that's great promotion for the second.
If you have everything, yeah, just have like 5 pages of teaching portfolio that can fulfill the school KPI already.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nas. Any other questions before we end? We are actually 15 minutes past based on what we planned. Because
Sorry for that.
no problem. This is great sharing, and yeah, good promotion. If you want to know how to do this hands-on, especially the e-portfolio, stay tuned for the second series. Okay. Any other questions? And before I forget, please, if you haven't shared your staff ID, please share it on the chat or with me WhatsApp or via WhatsApp so that I can share it with the AR for the purpose of PBU. Yeah, we're gonna get PBU and attendance, of course. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. This is great. I truly appreciate, and thank you very much, Dr. Nas. Anybody else who wants to share, who ask question, who have questions? Any questions so far? I'm just gonna.
Okay, any final questions or whatever feedback maybe before we end?
I think you've done great. Maybe that's not yet, maybe soon, not now. Okay, but thank you everyone, and we end our meeting, Zoom meeting. This is a great meeting. Alhamdulillah, it went smooth. Zoom has been saying like you have poor connection or low bandwidth, but it went well. Alhamdulillah, nobody got kicked out. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, it shows in my on my screen.
Right.
I have like the signage here, slow connection, and I was like, oh, please. But alhamdulillah, it went well today.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Dr. Faizahani, thank you. It's Latin. Okay, thank you very much.
Olin.
Yeah. Oh,
Can
yeah.
you hear me? Oh, yeah.
Yes, of course.
All right, good. Thank you, Dr. Nas. I'm sorry I couldn't I couldn't join from the very beginning because I just completed another meeting this morning. But thank you so much. I'm also learning Ancora. What was that? What was it again?
Ancora
Emparo.
Yes. I'm also Ancora Emparo with you. And thank you for also reminding everybody about the KPI for the portfolio. Well, actually, it's not about the KPI, but if you do that, it's actually good for you, and at the same time, you also tick off the KPI. Because this is part, I think portfolio is part of being reflective, right? I mean, all of us should, in the education faculty, should be walking the talk about being a reflective teacher.
Yes.
And I truly admire people who are very good in technology. I'm still crawling in terms of technology, but getting there. And Olin, thank you for being a wonderful host, because very interactive session. Very good. I look forward to more. Thanks.
I thank my JAM members too, Dr. Alif, Jizon.
Oh yes. And the JAM members, because a very good way of reminding people, like a few days before and 1 hour before, 20 minutes before, 10 minutes before. I think that's wonderful. Thank you very much, JAM, for doing this. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys, and yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Shukur. Thank you, Prof. Arse. Yeah, Dr. Nur Wahida, Dr. Faizahani. Great sharing, great directions. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, dengar Prof. Arse punya suara.
Ya, baru dengar. Thank you semua.
Thank you, Nas.
Bye.
Hi, what's that?
Bye.
Oh, nice.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Okay, bye. I'm leaving now.
Okay, yes, go ahead.